Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I just want to say a really big thank you, actually, of all the things you could have decided to do on a fine, sunny bank holiday Saturday. You've come and decided to sit in a dark room and listen to a bunch of people talk about casting. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. What do I need to say? If you haven't given your name in to the guys on the registration desk already, later on when we have networking drinks, make sure you give your names in. We've got a prize draw for a Lacey hard drive, so there's not that many of you here, so you've got a really good chance of winning today. We're in the drawing room for networking drinks later, which is cool. We've been upgraded, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. And the only other thing really to say is, so we're going to have a little break at kind of 1:45. If you could all just go out the VIP exit, that would be great. We've got this Dark Crystal exhibition going on at the moment, so they've asked us to kind of vacate this way. And then you can come back in through the stairs, that's fine. And at the end of the event, we'll take you out that way again. But for now, I'd just like to welcome onto the stage Mr. Matt and Jan, who is going to be our host for the day. Round of applause for Matt, please.
There you go. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, everyone. Is this mic working? Are you sure? Oh, wow. Okay. Perfect. I love that. Welcome to the BFI Future Film Labs. Thank you for coming. You guys are all amazing because it's 30 degrees out there and you're in here focusing on filmmaking, so you are the real legends. Today we're going to be talking about casting, and it's going to be super amazing because we've got a super amazing panel. And just a quick note, which you might know already, but there is a competition happening where you can win a Lacey hard drive. And as you can see, there's a lot of people here today, so the competition is very intense. But we're going to bring our amazing panel onto this stage now. So Heather, Mark, and David, welcome. Big round of applause, come on. Keep clapping, come on, so they sit down, show them some love. Let's do it. Oh, yeah. Squeeze in there.
Hey.
Hello, let's see if this magic mic, amazing, it works. Technology is an amazing thing. So today, as you all know, we're going to be talking about casting, and I'm very excited about this because I know nothing about casting. So I'm going to discuss casting with this amazing panel. So first, I guess the best way to start is to get you all to introduce yourselves. So we'll start with Heather.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Heather Baston. I'm a casting director. I started out working here at the BFI about 6 years ago and went on to work in casting ever since. I do screen, so I don't do theatre, and I'm a member of the Casting Directors Guild of the UK and the Casting Society of America. I'm also on the Diversity Committee for the CDG, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's me.
Amazing.
God, I only got like two things.
That's all right.
I'm Mark. I'm a filmmaker. Shit, that was one thing.
Wow. You've got lots.
Oh my God.
He's being modest. He's being very modest.
Yeah, I sort of produce, write, direct, the usual thing that low-budget filmmakers do as much as you can because it keeps costs down so we can afford actors in our films.
Hi, I'm David Ahmad. I'm a British Asian actor. Been doing it for too long. Yeah, across theatre, film, TV, commercials, the usual kind of gamut. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Before I start throwing some questions, I want to throw something out to the audience just to understand who's in the audience today. So is any actors in the room today? Make some noise. That's like two. That guy's definitely an actor. He put his hand. He's ready to get casted. Any directors here? Any producers? One producer. Amazing. Oh, two. There we go. Amazing. Make sure you all bond and speak to each other. Is there anyone else here that's not one of the three? What are you then? Writer. Is that you right as well? Same? Okay, perfect. Any casting agents here? Any? Oh, here you go. Got one. So amazing. So what's quite interesting, a lot of films don't actually have casting agents when we talk about short films. So what is your perspective on that? I feel like I'm throwing a big one at you straight away.
What's my perspective on people not hiring?
Yeah, not hiring. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It might be a bit biased. But let's start.
I would say, there's always a way you can do everything yourself. I think coming to things like this where we'll give you the guidance and the know-how and how to do things as professionally as possible. You've already taken the first step in doing that. I think it's nice because you get to see a lot of filmmakers using their friends, which is, I think your friends are like one of your biggest tools. As long as they're okay at acting, then you know it's all
Then
good.
it's all right.
Yeah, then it's okay. So I would say, yeah, if you're going to do it yourself, then, you know, just really utilize the things you have around you, like your friends and locations and everything like that.
Okay.
I just have one other question as well for you, Heather, because I know, because you've explained it to me lots of times, but it took me a long time before I kind of figured out exactly what casting directors do, because of the same route of like getting friends or people you know. So maybe you can explain to everyone what a casting director in general does.
Yes, so I'll take you like through my kind of working day, I guess. So I will get the script from the producer, and I'll get the list of characters, the list of descriptions, the money, if any. Hopefully there is, but if not, you know, I've worked on stuff where there's no money as well, and it's fine. And then we basically do like the search. That's like the nitty gritty of it. We'll do the search. So depends on what kind of casting method the director wants, whether they want street casting, which can be as blunt as we literally go out onto the street and we find people, or whether they want traditional casting, so we'll put it out on platforms like Spotlight, Mandy, different platforms depending on what kind of budget you're working to. And then we also will do the auditions, run the auditions, set everything up, make links and send it to the production team director. That's like, I would say that's like the longest stage. You know, sometimes we can see hundreds of actors for like just a few roles. And then after that, that's what everyone sees is the auditions, and that's what everyone kind of thinks that's like the only thing we do. But after that, there's the contracts. We do all the negotiations, and it can come down to little things like negotiating what actor gets what credit where and for how long it's on screen. When you get to like a certain level, I'd say. And then after the contracts, that's when you would like hand it over to the producer. We do stuff that's like in development, so we'll make casting lists of different ideas. If a production needs a certain actor on board or a certain caliber of actor to get greenlit, so we do projects in development as well. And that can take like years. I could be like on development on a feature for like years, throwing names around. So.
It's a busy. It sounds like
busy, yeah.
a very busy job.
Yeah.
So I guess, Mark, on your side,
Yes.
you have probably a different, you know, strategy when it comes to casting. So maybe you can give us a bit of insight into that.
Yeah, it's because I mean I've been doing it for a while. So I think when I first came to London, it was about 15 years ago, I was working. I was working with actors on theatre projects, so the circle sort of expanded from there. And so the projects that we work on, that I usually am in control of writing, and I can sort of say, oh well, we want, you know, Cara to be in this one, or you know, Emily to be in this one. You
So
know,
it's a hand selected. You just
yeah, and so it's in that sense we kind of know roughly what we want to do, but of course because we work on sort of like a lower budget side of things, when we do employ people, we're paying them, but we're not necessarily paying them the amount they'd get for say a pot noodle advert.
Okay.
So they
That's
might
very specific.
So,
It's not money in pot noodle adverts.
we got a guy in a pot noodle advert, and so you know we naturally say, look, you go do that job.
Yeah.
That's the better paid job. If we can't work around that,
Okay.
we'll skip this film, we'll put you in the next one. So for us it's more a case of like constantly adapting. Even in films where we have something of a better budget and we can create certain sets and stuff like that, it's still, oh, okay, we can only do this now, we can only afford this. And I think we've spoken a couple of times about this sort of thing. I've never felt that we've had a decent enough fee for Heather, so...
Okay,
but
one day. We'll work
Not for you.
Don't worry, we'll work it out.
Well, we're kind of very lucky as well, because like I know Heather well enough that we can say, okay, this is what we've got here. But in terms of casting agents, I mean, Heather would be the first person we go to, which is nice because we know April Webster too. So
And again, that's like utilising people around you as well. Like, use people that you know.
Yeah, and so it's this is how we would employ actors. It's the same way we'd employ casting agents. Jeremy as well. So it's if that makes sense, my process is a little bit sort of different. It's more based on who we can work with, and of course the main criteria is like, don't be a dick. Like we don't like dicks. So
no one,
Yeah, we try to.
It's a useful tip. So I'm going to throw it to David because I'm very interested in your perspective.
Yeah.
Because you might have worked with both sides of the casting experience. So.
Well, it's quite nice being sat next to a casting director and a director because it's like I'm in the inner circle now. I've gone beyond the curtain. Like, I've seen behind it. As an actor, it's weird, because it's you don't really know what goes on. You get the sides through. You prep it. You go in. You meet the casting director. You do the audition, and then it's kind of that's my job done. And you have no idea really what goes on. I mean, you do with experience. You kind of talk to people and you find out over time. But it's a really odd thing to do. You kind of just hand something over to somebody and then it's in their hands. And sometimes it goes your way and more often it doesn't. But that's the job. Casting's a really odd thing because. There's been recently. There's been a real increase in self-tapes. So people who can't see you for whatever reason say, put yourself on tape and send it through. And it's that's really odd because you've got nobody directing you. All you can do is go on your own hunch, which isn't necessarily what they want to see. So that's always quite tricky. It's always nice being in a room with somebody. Another human who can direct you and give you tips and stuff. But casting, odd. You have to trust your own decisions really, and be prepared to be challenged, and not be closed off to other avenues of looking at scenes and stuff. It's an odd profession.
Why are we here? Why do we pick this profession? This is very interesting.
We love it.
We love it. We love it dearly.
See our happy face.
That's it. All our happy. We're all smiling. It's just very dark. Don't worry. But on the topic of self-tapes, what stands out? How does someone smash, nail, get the role?
Yeah, I want to know that.
First of all, if you label your tape with your name, then I'm a very happy woman.
Oh, wow.
Okay, if you send me a tape and it says IMG_VML.mp4, then straight away I'm like, oh my God. No, so I would say with self-tapes, it has become a new thing. There's a lot of productions now that are wanting to do self-tapes in the first instance rather than doing castings, and that can come down to budget. It could work in your favour as a producer, director. It can also go the other end. You can also get a lot of tapes in that are not right. So I think if you're a director or producer, for example, it's important to look at a self-tape from an actor, but just try and see just a tiny potential. Because, as David said, they've got no one directing them at home. Some of them might be using iPhones, which is absolutely fine. It's just try to kind of see like a tiny bit of the character, and then I would try and call them into the room to meet you. I wouldn't try and look for everything you're ever looking for in a character in a self-tape, because I just don't think you'll ever get it. But you can look for potential, and it's can be affordable for not only the production but also for the actor. It's kind of like it's got positives and it's got negatives.
I find self-tapes really stressful.
Yeah.
Because it's finding a space where you can set up that's got a blank wall and a mate that can read with you. It's just odd. It's an odd situation. Come in here, use the studio. Don't do that. You might not be allowed to. But because it takes a lot of time, because you need to get to know the script, then get somebody who can help you do it and find the right place to do it, somewhere that's quiet, well lit. It's more effort on your behalf. Sometimes it works. I've been cast off self-tapes, so they're a part of the industry, so you can't avoid it now.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been using a lot of them recently for the film that we're doing now, and I guess, I mean, I've not got a problem with them because I think, like Heather's saying, you don't look for a performance because it's great in a way because as a filmmaker, it's like I don't really enjoy table reads either when we get people to do table reads because no one says the lines right, even the actors that we've cast, no one says it right, and then you walk away going, oh well, at least I have a role in this. I can direct a performance now, so that's somewhere to go with it. But I think when it comes to self tapes, I'm very aware that we're not looking necessarily for a completed role. You're just looking for little glimpses of how people's work process. Like the one we've been doing is kind of strange when people are supposed to be flying a spaceship in like a space battle. So what I'm looking for is someone to kind of create a space instead of just reciting the lines. And so many self-tapes we have of people just saying lines. And I'm like, oh, I can't see any thought behind the lines. And the people that we're most impressed with, whether they're doing this on purpose or not, is they'll be doing their lines and then they'll flick a glance at something and then flick a glance somewhere else. I'm like, right, whatever's behind the camera feels very alive and busy. And I guess that's the nature of visual effects. So I can see that someone's going to do that. So it doesn't matter how they say the lines, that they can learn lines, great. That's the first thing we expect. But, to see the thought process behind the eyes, that's where I'm interested in, like a body language in a performance. And you can see when an actor has control of their own toolkit, really, and access to those tools to get that across. So that's something I always sort of look for. It's never really how a line is delivered because you can correct that. But I think the thing about a self-tape is, because the way I direct as well, I often don't really say much for the first take. I might say, stand there, and then there. And that might be about it. I want to see what the actor's thoughts are. And sometimes when we're shooting a scene, I want this. And the actor gives me the complete other end of the spectrum. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So let's work towards what I was looking for. And usually somewhere in the middle, we find something really interesting. And I don't really care about what I was looking for in the first place anymore. I'm like, this is so much more interesting. So, it's not even about getting it right. Does that make sense? I think I'm waffling.
I feel like it does make sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay, that'll do. Close enough.
I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. That's what I can say. But it does. But
sorry, I waffle.
I guess, the question for me from that is, how does a director get better at trusting their intuition and not just casting off someone's previous track record and keeping that balance? And even yourself as a casting director, Idris Elba could just walk in, but I might be the guy for the role. So how do you, not just throw myself out there, but how do you,
you'd get it in my film because we couldn't afford it.
By default. So how do you find the balance between, I don't know, you're working in a production and you feel like this new emerging talent might be better, but the production, like, I really want this guy. I want the big stars. Or what's your stance? Are you looking for the big stars or you're more excited about emerging talent?
For me, both are just as exciting. Productions may come to us and want a big star, and that's fine. And most of the time, at the end of the day, we're hired by production, and ultimately it's the director's vision. So we will explore that, but part of our job as casting directors is also to open minds, make sure people's minds are like open and show like directors and producers different things they may not have thought of before. So whether it's like changing a role from male to female or like changing it from a name to this really exciting up and coming actor and then putting the name in a different role or something like that, So we're like constantly trying to change minds subtly. You have to do it subtly. Yeah, and it's like just trying to keep everyone happy, really. Cool. But I love working with new talent. Like I said, like I do things like street casting, and there's been some amazing actors that have come out of street casting. And again, like I make lists of named established actors as well. Often you'll need, like productions will need those to get bigger films greenlit, and that's fine. Everyone knows that is what's going on. Like the actor will know they're needed for a project to be greenlit and all sorts. So I don't really have a preference, but I do enjoy working with new actors.
Do you push people who you think would be, how pushy can you get with a director? Do you know what I mean? Like if you think somebody would be absolutely perfect for it.
You can get pretty pushy in a polite way.
The way that was phrased.
Yeah, it's obviously you don't want to push it too much, but at the end of the day, hopefully they've hired me or another casting director because they respect your opinion, and ultimately that's your job. I worked on a film. It's a short film, actually a BFI film called Nosebleed, and the lead in the film is called Ruby Stokes, and I was just like, this girl is amazing. She's going to go places. The director kind of liked someone else a little bit, but I was like, come on, you just have to get her in the room. Just get her in the room. So we got her in the room, and she smashed it. She got the part, and now she's in a new Shonda Rhimes series as the lead, which is they're shooting now in London, and it's like. Yeah, so you can be like, that's our job, is we know who's kind of up and coming and stuff. So I think hopefully, you know, as directors, if you do work with a casting director, it's collaborative and you trust them, and you know, you trust each other to bring new ideas together.
Okay, there's a interesting word I think you said in terms of changing minds. So I want to talk about something that semi-recently happened. Well, with the BFI, they recently announced that they're not going to be funding films with actors who have got scars and are being positioned as villains. So I don't know if you aware about that?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about actors being put in the box? As a casting director, what is your responsibility to not typecast people? Or do you feel like that's your job to typecast people because the director wants this person to look this way?
There's just a job, there's like a duty of care. Like I always say, is like with the actors, there's a duty of care, and again, it's like if something is totally stereotyped, you kind of have to maybe be that voice. There are certain situations where stereotypes are not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it's not like every stereotype is a bad thing. It depends on the story. There's so much context. You know what I mean? But yeah.
I just keep thinking about all these facially scarred actors that can't get a job now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's probably their bread and butter.
Yeah.
And now they can't do that. I think it'd leave the choice to the actor, I think, really. The responsibility of the filmmaker is its own thing. And I think absolutely, you know, you're as a storyteller, you shouldn't necessarily be reinforcing negative stereotypes. That's a responsibility you have as a storyteller, but it's not your responsibility as a casting director. And it's if a director says, oh, I want to do a Bond movie, so I need a guy with like a hideously scarred half his face, because that's a trope in a Bond film.
Yeah.
It seems like a really odd thing. Just finance the films, don't get involved in the creativity, I suppose.
Wow.
It's not, because, I don't know.
It's all coming out. It's all coming out. It's all going down. But what's your experiences? Have you been typecasted before? Do you feel like you get put for particular roles? If so, what are they?
Yeah, this is tricky. Yeah. Yes and no. So, because I'm mixed race, it's a really tricky area. Yeah, I get put up for a lot of terrorist roles. A lot. And yeah, yes, but as you can tell, I'm quite, I'm not brown, particularly, and so I also don't get a lot of roles because I'm not brown enough. It's a really odd thing. And when we talk about stereotypes, I know that lots of when they talk about Pakistani actors, I'm half Pakistani. A lot of people want to see someone who's brown because that doesn't really fit in. If they're not, it doesn't really fit into their idea of what somebody from Pakistan might look like. Yeah. So it's really tricky. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I do go up for a lot of those roles. But then, I'm fortunate. But that's that's TV and film. For theatre, it's less. It's definitely less prescriptive. And far more goes in theatre. But for TV and film, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's the realism, the verisimilitude of the medium.
Film and TV, it's a conditioned audience. That's why people are expecting a certain thing, and we're in a really interesting time now where storytellers aren't necessarily going for those stereotypes. They're sort of fighting against them, and I think this is a really interesting time to see stories shift. You know, if something comes along and it leans too heavily into a negative stereotype, that film is like singled out and criticized to such a degree that you can see some of those choices now aren't being made in the films. If you just go back like 10 years, you can see the change. So, you know, we're not there yet, but we're pointed in the right direction to some degree, which is, you know, hopefully it's going to get better and better and better, and we can start seeing, you know, I watch a lot of Star Trek, you know, there's that whole idea that tries to say, look, this is everyone's different, let's embrace those differences and tell stories in that.
Not in a George Lucas, Phantom Menace kind of way, but in a,
Oh, good way.
So Japanese.
There's gonna be a lot of people in this audience that probably have aspirations to work with you. Who's got aspirations to work with these guys? Come on, make some noise.
Don't ask them in front of us.
I'm putting the
They're all
audience
for you.
Sadly, I can't employ any of
Still
you.
awake. It's, you know, it's important. So Heather,
Yes.
how does someone work with you? Because this is my first time sitting next to a casting director, so I feel like, what is the process? Because people can be afraid. I don't, you know, put you on the spot, but when is the budget right enough to talk to Heather? Or what do people need to send over? What makes you pick your projects?
If you're staying for the 2:00 masterclass that I'm doing, that I actually do cover that as well.
Ooh, you
I'm
see
going to
that?
cover it. But yeah, I think I would like work or approach a casting director whose work you genuinely like. Certain casting directors work on certain genres or certain things. You can sometimes see a pattern of like casting directors who work on like lots of comedy or like music based films or lots of street casting kind of films, you know. So I think approach carefully and just make sure you genuinely like the casting director is like a good kind of fit for your script. I would also be open to working with the associates and assistants in their office as well. So I think if you're going to email them and give them your script and ask them to work with you, I would also just mention, you know, I'm more than happy to work with an associate or an assistant in your office as well, because at the end of the day, like, they're all super skilled. Even the assistants are super, super skilled. So don't even feel, if they offer that to you, for example, don't even feel like it's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, they're definitely like more than capable of casting your film. The kind of things I need when I get sent stuff is I would need a script, a treatment is always a bonus because I'm a big fan of treatments. I love them, like visual treatments, anything. Script, treatment, a list of the roles, because that when you send over a list of the roles, that initially helps us work out, okay, how much time is this going to take? If there's no money, for example, it's like we can then sit and work out how much time is this really going to take? Can we afford to? Because you do, you know, when you work on projects for free, ultimately you don't go into minus, but you know, you're not making any money. So it's like, it all equates to time. So like, can I dedicate this amount of time to it, to these amount of characters? Because if it's like 11, 12 characters, that might be tricky. If it's like 1, 2, 3 characters, then that's probably doable for like a casting director or associate. We would also need any idea of fees for actors you might have, if any. If none, then just tell us it straight at the start. There's nothing worse than like having a conference call with a like director, producer, and they're like, oh, but after you've done like
the whole shebang.
You've read the script, you've read everything, had a conference call, and they're like, actually there's no money for the actors. It's like really awkward. So just be totally upfront about everything. If you've met them before, just mention it. If you know someone that they know, mention it. Just name dropping a little bit can be a good
Very
thing.
useful. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Mark?
In terms of
So in terms of someone wants to work with you, so it might be actors. Would they dive in your DMs? What is appropriate? What do you like? What is the do's and don'ts?
I'm okay with everything. I guess I'm not kind of hassled too much. So when someone does get in touch, if they're someone who's like desperately unworkable with.
Oh, wow, that's
The beautiful part of how social media works is this in a little section, so they never know you've read their email and seen their terrible showreel, so you're fine. But if anyone's any like decent, and you can sort of go, oh wow, okay, this is great, thanks for getting in touch, this is what we've got. And again, it's just a case of being upfront and saying this is what we've got, but I'm open to everything. I encourage it in a weird way. Whenever I'm at networking events like this, I'll say, yep, send us your stuff, here's your email, here's my producer, she's the best person to speak to. And that's not just necessarily for acting, but for any sort of crew role. Because even though, like, again, our budgets are low, we still pay, and we say, this is what we've got, this is the period we need you for, would you be available? And it's up to the individual to make that decision based on whether it's kind of an experience that's worth them having. I don't mean like for the experience, I mean we pay, so it's just them going, oh, but this Mars graduate pays me 10 grand as opposed to this. So so it's just about looking at things. It's always an individual basis, how people come across as well. Like I said, the biggest thing is no dickheads.
It's very useful. We should get a T-shirt.
Do you watch everything that people send to you?
I do, yes. Not necessarily all of it. If your showreel is 3 minutes and it's rubbish for a minute, I'm out. But I think that's not me being like difficult. I mean, like, self-awareness is an important thing, I think, for an actor to have, and if they're not self-aware enough to know that, like, it's the weird thing with this industry, scripts is the example I use the most. No one wants to read a script. Everyone needs a script, but no one wants to read it. It's not like a book you choose to read. You have to read this, and if you're an actor, you have to learn this crap. So so it's sort of the same. If you approach everything in film as if no one wants to see this stuff, then you have to structure it in a way where it opens really, really strong. So a showreel, for example, will open with you in a scene with Idris. I will go, sweet, wow, that's exciting. You did that. Okay, well, there you are. Oh, you're very good there. And then you can go down and down and down to the clunkiest film your mates got you into doing at the end of your reel, and then maybe something really cool at the end. That's... If I can see a showreel that can hold my attention for most of it, 100%, I'm like, that's really cool. But, and it's not to do with length. Sometimes I've had a 5-minute one. I thought, oof, geez, this is going to be one of those ones I only watch for a minute. But I've watched the whole thing. So it's a very different...
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, I try to give everyone a chance. It doesn't mean I rule them out. If I meet them in another circumstance, say if we're at a networking thing, and then that person who has a terrible showreel is a really interesting person, and... you get a conversation about performance or something like that, then you're like, oh, you're really interesting. Oh, wow, okay. So, it's not 100% like, sorry, saw your reel, wasn't for me. I can't have a conversation with you in public. It's not that at all.
It's just work. It's just don't take it personal, I guess. Or...
and things change. The showreel is a completely amorphous thing that changes. Your showreel now is totally different in 6 months' time. And so it all constantly changes. It's like, I don't want to sound like I'm being like a negative about
just being honest,
sending bad showreels or anything. But like, just be aware of the showreel, how it plays. I hate when people say stuff like this because I hate these stupid rules. But maybe if you can keep it to under 2 minutes, people are more likely to click on something that's 150 than they are 210. Not me, I'll watch them all. But I'll click on them all at least. But but if it's if people, lesser casting agents, right?
I would say
might
2
not
minutes.
might not
how
something as 5 minutes.
How long is your showreel, David? Not to put you on the spot.
1 minute 51.
How long is it? 51.
Yeah, 1 minute 51. Yeah.
Is it 1 minute 51? Really? How long is it?
Do you know what? I've got no idea.
Oh, really? It's about 6 minutes.
Definitely under 2 minutes. Definitely under 2
That's the
minutes.
right answer.
Okay. So from an actor's perspective, what things do you appreciate from casting directors and directors through your process to help you get prepared for a role? Or
well, as much information as possible about the character that you're preparing for is good. Do we need the entire script? Probably not, unless they're, in it throughout. Often, as an actor, if you're not going up for the lead roles, then you're just going up for little one-scene parts. I mean, their bearing on the script might be important, but actually, you don't need to know what's going on in the rest of the film because obviously that's not of importance to your character. So just the kind of stuff that's important for the character that you're playing. That's the kind of basic. A little bit of time to prepare is always good. Yeah. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But obviously, a couple of days or a weekend is better than the day before, because then often it just becomes a learning exercise. especially if it's, you know, 1 or 2 scenes that you're preparing. Feedback is always really appreciated, and just be warmth. I don't know. As an actor, all I'm wanting is somebody to say, "Really good, well done."
And a yes or a no? Do you?
Yeah, and yeah, a yes or a no afterwards. So even if you think, even if you don't like what I've done, just be positive. And I mean, I would hope that you would want everybody who walks through the door when you're auditioning them to nail the part and give you a really difficult choice. And I think it's just about, and also, you know, if people come in and they don't do it, it's finding the words to be able to correct them in a way that is positive to them and encouraging to them, but also gets you what you want. That's probably the trickiest skill in an audition, I would have thought.
Yeah, you want to see if the person you're working with can be directed, because that's another important thing with an actor. A lot of actors, they learn it a specific, not a lot, so that's not fair to say. Some actors learn a specific way, and no matter how much and I've got like several processes of going through it where I'll talk about maybe it in terms of technical and the physical performance. So can you lift there, and then I'll be like, oh, can you break the voice there a little bit, and it goes all the way through to, if they don't take direction, to me doing a line reading, which I never do.
Yeah,
that's an actor's. I hate being given line readings. It's
not professional. It's not nice. I found, although with children, that's because they mimic, and obviously they can do it better than you, and they can only mimic to their own sort of their own interpretation of what you've asked them to do. So they pick up on little nuances, and you can. With children, it's great, but it's something you don't even need to do it with all children. Actually, there are a few that are really, really good and take direction quite well.
When I first walk into a room, what I'd like to be able to do is for me to do it my way. Just I think any actor wants to show what they can do. So just let an actor do what they want to do. And if it's, I mean, it might surprise you and it might be perfect. Probably it won't be quite what you're looking for, but then that's when you can adjust. Yeah. But the actor has at least then allowed themselves to go, this is what I think. Yeah, and then you go, yeah, that was great. Can we try it try it, I don't know, you know, and then give them little adjustments.
Yeah, I think that works really well.
Let them get their stuff down and sort of like show you, we just want to please. We're very simple.
I agree, and I also think when I run my castings, I always offer the opportunity for questions before we start. So then, if there is someone who has not grasped the script at all or something, it just gives them the chance to ask a question before they dive in, and they might want to correct something very quickly.
It's funny. If I go into a casting and somebody says any questions, I always feel, is that a trick question?
Oh yeah,
should I ask a question?
With it's not a trick question.
Right, yeah.
You have to have a question.
Do I have to? Because
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Being in the casting audition sounds very intense, but I want to talk about the forbidden word of the creative industry is money. So as an actor, oh wow, your face was like, oh bloody hell.
All right,
that word.
Money. Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, money exists in this industry. Oh my days! Like, so the question I have for you as an actor: do you still take unpaid roles? And if you do, what influences that? What's your stance on it? And we can spread it across, and we can.
I think, you know, it all depends on the project and the people that are doing it, and whether I can actually afford to do it unpaid. I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't look out for them, if you see what I mean. It would have to be something that, you know, the project has to really, it would have to excite me and the people that I was working with, for whatever reason that might be, whether I think that they're, you know, going to make a really great movie or whether they're up and coming or, generally, I can't afford to work for no money because rent in London is stupid.
Very expensive.
Yeah, so I mean it's a tricky one, but obviously people have to start somewhere, and you know, and it's a really expensive industry to get into as a filmmaker. I mean, it's which is why working with friends and having a group of people and events like this are great because you can see each other's films if you enjoy somebody's film, go and talk to them, because it might be that you can collaborate in a way, meeting new people, working with friends, that allows you to work on a level where you might not be able to pay, but you can create something really good that then could progress along and, maybe turn into something else, get you the funding that allows you to pay the next time. I think you should always aim to pay people something.
I feel like I should be playing some sad music now because it's getting very, very emotional. But Heather, I don't want to get anyone thrown in prison, by the way, but what are the legalities of productions? What should be people doing legally?
Well, I agree with everything you said. I think you need to aim to pay actors. I've been approached for a lot of projects where they'll pay everyone else and not the actor. And I don't know if it's personal. It might be just personal. I'm like, no, you need to you need to try and be fair. So if your crew are being paid, then I feel like you need to try and find something for your actor. Because at the end of the day, your actor is in the forefront of the camera. The actor is there. The actor is a big part of your film. And there is a stigma that is we can get actors who will work for free. And you can always find actors who will work for free. But if you can pay them something, the national minimum wage, £75 a shoot day. If you can find that 1 or 2 shoot days, then you are sweet and you are legal. And everyone's legal.
No jail time.
75 to £80 a day. Maybe you can't cover travel, but then just be realistic. Cast someone in London if you're shooting in London. Give them food. That's what everyone wants. Food.
You don't want pizza.
Yes, give them food. Pizza, and the basics of human living, water, all that kind of stuff. I would just say I'm very passionate just about keeping it fair. And a lot of actors will ask, is anyone else on your team being paid? And it's not enough to just have a director who's not being paid and an amazing DOP who you're putting all your money into, because like I said, your actors at the forefront. Just try and find something. Expenses are another thing, but again, I would just be very careful then if you're going to cast yourself and you're going to not pay people. All this stuff, if you're going to cast on social media and stuff, just remember all this stuff lasts forever. Be careful the way you word your castings. People are quick these days to screen grab things. Oh, this director's asking for this person to work for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just be really careful how you word it and how you approach it. It can be done, but always aim and push to pay people the minimum wage. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to jump to Mark because you've made a feature film for £45, if that's correct.
Yeah.
So break down the budget of that, and apparently, tell me if I'm lying as well. Did it play at Cannes?
Did it what?
Oh, did it play? Did it?
Play it can, yes, it did.
So that's something that is really great, by the way. Can we have a £45 feature? You say I like this.
It might be the wrong crowd because we clearly didn't pay the actors.
So break down the budget of that and just talk to us about your experiences.
I can't break down the budget because the fact is we didn't pay for it. And I was living on an overdraft at the time, and I just made it with my mates. Some were actors, some of them weren't actors. And we just made that movie. So we just went out and used whatever we had available to us. We shot on the streets without permits. We just sort of went out and made a movie, and it was always at everyone's convenience, and everyone was on board. There was no, we didn't make any false promises about anything. We made some money off the film, so the key players involved in the film all saw something for that. It wasn't really, we didn't really make that much money off the film in the end, but there were little things like, oh, look, we're getting a release in Japan. So
that's pretty amazing.
The lead actor's dream was to go to Japan at one point and say, well, get out of this, mate. You get to come out to the best with us now. So there are things like that we did. And I think there was a point where we were sitting on a plane, and he was just like, dude, we just made a a zombie movie
Yeah.
in our garden, and now we're going to Japan.
That's it.
And I was like, it's great, isn't it?
You want to go to Japan?
It's so in that instance, it was a thing we did, and but after that, I was determined that, well, we've had our break now. We've proven that we can make a film, and we could make a film at any point we wanted. Got the kit, we could just go out and make a movie, and we do the same thing all over again. No one gets paid. But I said, well, no, we've earned our right to get paid now. So all the budgets, by the time we started getting budgets for stuff, which is quite a while after, I think it was about 8 years after, we pay everyone. So, and it's across the board, everyone gets the same rate. So the crew get the same rate as the actors. So everyone's on the same thing. And yeah, it's not a lot of money, but again, we're upfront with what we can afford and what we do. And you know, and say this is the time frame in which we have to make it in. So we try to make it easy on people's time, so that when we're not paying them much, we're not keeping them for a month. I mean, we did a film recently because one of the things I wanted to try and do is to get other directors on board. And so our first sort of like dipping the toes in those waters, it didn't kind of work out so well because the film didn't quite work out, and the crew, we had a bit of a tough time on it because it was one we were producing. We were letting another director do a thing. And I just thought, shit, I got to make this up to these guys. So we took on another project that I ghost directed, and we shot it in 8 days. And just so everyone could get paid more. So I said, right, if I work really hard, we can shoot this in 8 days. Then it'll be, you know, there's just that little bit more money for everyone, and it's sort of it'll keep them all on our side, because I love my crew, I love my casts, I really want them to keep coming back with us. And I mean, it seemed okay because they're all coming back on the new film now, but. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think paying people is the very least we can do. So our budgets are essentially payroll.
Yeah.
So we've never really moved away from that thing of making a film for nothing, because even though we get the budgets, it's like, well, that pays everyone, and that leaves us with about $1,000 to buy props or build sets, and it's just nothing. It's nothing.
I guess it's all about being considerate, isn't it, of other people, and realising that, you know, if you are giving your time for free, then you can't take the piss.
Yeah.
And you've got to be considerate to other people's needs. And like you said, you know, if you cast somebody, you know, and then they say, actually, I've got this job coming up, I don't think I'm available for the dates, you kind of have to say,
We work around it.
yeah, we work around it, or you kind of, okay, well, not this time, but so
See you in the next movie.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I want to ask a question to you, Heather, about your experiences as a casting director, because you worked on End of the Effing World. I had to take a step back. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear at these education events.
I think I said fuck already.
Cool.
Shit.
You worked on End of the Fucking World. There, done it. So, what was your, like, how did you land that job, and what's the experience as a casting director? Is it inbound, you get a lot of people sending you stuff, or do you hustle and bustle and, you know, have coffees with directors to get yourself out there?
So I was associate on that job, and in terms of how you land it, well, I was working for a different casting director at the time. But how you land jobs is, a lot of it is actually, you know, directors and producers will see your work. Can be word of mouth, like recommendations. But I think the main thing is people seeing your work and people loving your cast and your processes. People can see your process online. That seems to be, like, for me, the way I'm landing my jobs right now. And it's a lot of working with the same people as well. Like, you all start in the same place, and then as I've grown, I've been working with the same people who are also growing, and then all the, you know, the budgets get bigger because we're all going up. So that's been really nice, like working with some directors. So I work a lot with Rob Savage. He used to do like a bit of work here, but I've like just finished on another thing with him. But then we've been working for like years, so like maybe like 4 or 5 years now. And it's just nice when you have like a collaboration. So I think if you find someone that you love working with, stick with them and like grow together, because it does, you know, everything kind of gets bigger as you go up. So.
Okay, amazing. Stick with the good people.
Or did
You
I
did.
go on a tangent?
No, you know, stick with the people you know.
Yeah.
The people that you're next to on the panel, and that's it.
Yeah.
I just planted myself there, by the way, because now you're stuck with me. But I'm going to ask one more question to this amazing panel before I throw out to the audience. So the question I have is, have you looked at a film and thought, wow, this is such amazing casting? And if you have, what example could you give to the audience? Apart from your own work, of course.
Yeah, absolutely, with Nail and I. It's just, well, I think it's almost the perfect movie, but the casting in that is impeccable.
That you was ready, you prepared the answer. That's, you next.
You know what, funnily enough, I mentioned in Star Trek twice now, when the first J.J. Abrams one came out, that was when I met April's brother. And that was the first thing we spoke about, was before I realised, I was like, oh, that cast is really fun and exciting. It's like essentially a bunch of children running a starship. I was like, oh, but it works. And I thought the chemistry was amazing. And and that was, he was like, oh, my sister did that. And she's done all the new Star Wars films now, and everything J.J. Abrams has done, I think. So I that really stood out for me. Because I mean, a lot of those were people who hadn't really done a great deal before. Well, especially with Star Wars. Getting a guy from Peckham, I was like, that was really exciting. So I think April's work has always impressed me. We're just not quite got the budgets yet to go to her and say, hey, can you get us Camille Nanjiani, please?
In timing.
Nocturnal Animals, Tom Ford. Yeah, I just love the casting on that. I think it's amazing. Sex Education on Netflix, particularly because, we get asked to cast names all the time. They just want to name. And yeah, Asa Barfield is a name. But 99% of that cast is actors that I had even never met before, really, in like my 7 years of casting. Yeah. They were like plucked from, like maybe they were graduates or just people who had not necessarily ever got in the room before. And it just reminds you, like, not everything is about attaching that name. There's so much good talent out there. And that casting for me was just like, I was like, that's great. And they've just introduced all these amazing actors now to the world. So
okay, it's beautiful. Look for talent.
It's a beautiful thing.
So all this talented audience, this is your moment to ask questions. I'm not going to put my hand down until someone puts a question to the audience. Thank you. My hand was starting to hurt. Go for it.
Thank you for coming in today and sharing your experiences and stuff. I found it really insightful with everything that I want to do in my own career. But I consider myself to be a young actor and everything. I consider myself to be a young actor, and everything that I've done so far in my career has been unpaid. So I think I guess my question is, like, when do you think an actor sort of gets to that point where, okay, this is sort of a bit more of a career thing where you should be getting a wage for it? Because I've never really expected to get paid for anything that I've done. But when do you think it is time that sort of happens for a young actor?
Just to add on to that question as well, how can an actor put their foot down and ask for money and convince you guys to find the money?
It's hard because you're in that gap in between now, so you can't get someone who's about 14 or under without paying them, without having a proper, established legal setup to make sure that kid is 100% protected, they're not working too hard, they're being looked after. Then you've got the, let's say, late 20s, 30s, where you're like, I'm getting paid for this now because this is my job. And then there's that little section there where I think a lot of people here probably fit, where it's like, shit, I just want to do more work so I can get to be an actor. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that that's the tricky spot that a lot of us find ourselves in. Definitely expecting not to get paid. No, you should definitely be paid.
It's one of the hardest things in the world, turning down a job. Because you want to work, or you want to do stuff, you enjoy doing it, you want to do it. But, there has to come a point where you kind of think, well, do you want to carry on doing this, or is it just a hobby?
Yeah.
And if you want to carry on doing it, then you should demand to be paid, or you should consider not taking jobs that don't pay, unless you think it's going to get you on the next step of the way that then might lead to you being paid.
Yeah.
There's a nice way of doing it, right? You can say, you've got your friends now, you've got your circle of people you've worked with in films, you've done stuff with them before, or theatre. Now, say a new person comes up to you and says, I saw you in this film, I'd like you to work there, that's really good. You can say, oh, I'd love to, that sounds amazing, sign me up. The trouble is, I kind of got another project booked for that day, I got another acting job. What's the fee? And I'll see if I can juggle them around and move that on. If they say, oh, there's no fee, say, okay, cool. I'm happy to do it for free. But what I'll do is I'll see if I can juggle that job around anyway. And then just go, fuck that, I ain't working for free. I couldn't shift it around. I'm so sorry.
That's a good. That's
really good.
Yeah.
You don't piss anyone off. Everyone's still your mate. And they're like, oh, when we get money, you know what I mean? It's like, I do this all the time when I'm asked to freelance stuff, and it's usually a case of, ooh, they're not paying me much for that one. So just pretend there's another job, and no one gets hurt, you don't hurt. There's always a fictional creature you've created that stops you taking their job for free, which you'd love to do. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Do you have an agent?
No, I don't have an agent. I'm looking for one currently.
Yeah. And do you have like a show reel and stuff?
Yeah, like I recently got off a few short films, so they're in post-production now, so I'm trying to get them together. By the end of the year, I should have them put together.
So I feel like there's a few goals. So like if you've got the content where you feel, if you've got content and you feel comfortable with that, like a show reel, that is a good point where you could be like, right, now I'm gonna take a jump and be more picky because you've got the content behind you. You've done like the hard work for free. And like there's another goal, it's like getting an agent. Now you've got that person that can be your voice, and you don't, they if they demand money, maybe they will get it rather than you demanding money. Sadly there is like a hierarchy, in this industry. But I guess like I would say like there comes a point in every filmmaker or actor's life when you just have to take a jump. I don't know, I took it, like when I started casting, I wasn't getting paid. I was casting for a massive network, and then I would, on Saturdays and Sundays, go and work in a shop and be treated like absolute shit. Literally, I was selling DVDs of like the network that I was working for. I was like, this is mad. And then there came a point, because obviously I had to survive, I had no money. And then there just came a point when I was like, oh, okay, I need to just take a leap and just leave this job and not have any stability. I'm not saying that for anyone to do that, but
scary.
It's almost like you have to be available to get the jobs as well. So it's like I had to leave, and I had to, and it's paid off, is what I'm saying. It took a while, but it's paid off, and now I don't really have to do anything for free if I don't want to. There's those little goals, and then like once you kind of hit them, I think you can feel more comfortable to like take that leap and to take risks and say no to projects and stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Is there any other questions in the audience?
Yeah.
And then there's one gentleman there after. Oh, just don't worry. She can go first. Then, sorry. I'll just stay.
You were talking about like starting off in casting. First of all, what is that like? And could you go into more detail as to what you actually do as an assistant and then as an associate? Because I personally know nothing about what the casting ladder is like.
Yeah. Starting out in casting, I made lots of tea and coffee, and looking back, I mean, I absolutely hated it at the time. Looking back, it was so valuable because, and I always say making tea and coffee is like one of the best things you could do. I learnt so much from eavesdropping. I was making tea and listening to phone calls, like whilst making coffee and tea. And I learnt so much. I learnt how to talk, how to negotiate, I learnt people's names. You know what I mean? I just learnt so much from warming up lunch and I would get sent out to buy lunch for someone, and then I'd be Googling like the name of the person I just heard on the phone call. And I learned so much. So by the time I was like given more responsibility, I was like totally confident to do it. So don't knock making tea and coffee. It's actually amazing. So that's what you do. As an assistant, you will make tea and coffee. You'll also like set up the casting sessions, book all the actors in. You'll make the lists. So the casting director will give you names to put on a list, for example, of like maybe established actors or something, and you have to make a list. You do like all the groundwork basically, and then as an associate, you do a lot of decision making. You'll do the contracts, negotiation. You'll actually run the auditions. You'll meet all the actors. You'll read with them, tape them. So it's much more hands-on. You'll make suggestions to the director. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll be able to do it directly to the producer and the director as well, because you're like associated with that casting director. And then obviously as a casting director, you I still make tea and coffee, so you know.
Tea and
But
coffee
like,
never ends.
yeah. I love it. But you know, then you are just overseeing everything and coming up with those names, all the creative stuff, and yes, all of that creative stuff. And you still do negotiations and contracts. And
How did you become an assistant?
I was actually working here, and there was a masterclass.
Hey, look at that.
And I met a casting director, and I bugged the hell out of him. And Jeremy, and he let me come and work with him for a week, and then the rest is history. Really, he taught me everything. So, and then I just never stopped working from there, and I went from assistant to associate, and then yeah.
Cool. Amazing. The question there for the gentleman at the back. It's all right, I got you. Good time. Is it? Oh, what? This is the last question, by the way. Sorry, just to throw it out there.
God,
No pressure.
Thank you very much for your advice so far. As an actor, how and where would you recommend finding an agent? At the moment, it seems if you're not established, they don't really want to know you. So where do you start? Who do you start with, and where do you look?
Finding an
Thank you.
agent. Yeah, that I mean that's always tricky.
There's a lot of like negative stuff, I think, with co-ops. Like a lot of actors seem to want to stay away from them. But a lot of actors I know who are struggling to get agents joined those, and and they actually ended up getting loads of work.
I started out at a co-op
Then you find another agent right in there.
many years ago.
Do you know what a co-op is?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the shop right now.
From a
Okay,
supermarket.
so a cooperative agency is basically a group of actors that get together and run their own agency. So however many that might be, 20, 30 people who do a day a week in the office, or however many days a week in the office, and when they're in the office they become everybody else's agents. And
They put themselves up for roles as well as other people. And
it's a brilliant way to learn about the business, learn who casting directors are, learn what's going on out there, and just about how the business works. You know, contract negotiation, all that kind of stuff. So it's really you learn a lot. It's not everybody's cup of tea. And obviously, you know, actors arguing with each other about what's the best way to proceed can be pretty difficult. But it probably opens you up to work that other agents might not consider you for. So, you know, there's the potential to work a lot there. So I would always look at those. Be aware that any agent is unlikely to want to get more than one or two of the same kind of like people on their books. Certainly with co-ops, people get very protective about their slot. So, you know, you want to look through people's books, you know.
That's the issue in itself, isn't it? If there's like Asian or black, then it becomes like really limiting and quite, what's the word? It's quite bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got 2 black people, I can't have any more.
Which is just utterly ludicrous, especially because they're not even like in the same age bracket or anything. So
one I heard of, there were a lot of like women who were like 40s to late 30s, and they all insisted that they were the early 20s. and it was, and all the guys who were in that cooperative were like, oh, we don't have a horse in that race. We ain't touching it. And it was,
I suppose there's many ways you can approach it. You can look at what kind of work do you want to do, and then look at people who do that kind of work and look at who their agents are, and look at their books and see if there's something that, you know, there might be a slot that you think, oh, actually, write to them. So, I mean, that's one way of approaching it. Co-ops is another way, but, you know, make sure you do research, make sure you know as much about the agents as you can, and do targeted letters. And, you know, show reels, obviously, really, really helpful. You know, up-to-date headshots, all that kind of stuff. And it's expensive, but it's kind of key. Are you in Spotlight?
Not yet.
Okay, that's really important. That's really important. Just because, you know, you can... You make yourself available for a lot more roles and stuff.
it's very professional as well, Spotlight. No one really... I mean, at least from my perspective, the sort of people who only have Star Now sort of like profiles. Those aren't generally that.
It
doesn't rule them out. It's just that there are a lot
It's
of
like levels,
there are a lot of
yeah.
unprofessional people who are on there as well, and unfortunately, you just pack yourself
Saturated.
up
There are
with those guys. And
very few agents who would take you on if you weren't on Spotlight, or they'd take you on, they'd expect you to get on Spotlight straight away. So yeah, that's why it's difficult. It's difficult. Ask friends. Have you got friends with agents?
A few, yes.
Yeah. Well, see if they can have a word with their agent. You know, find people. You know, get them to have a word. See if there's a way that you can get a connection that way.
All right, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
No worries, man.
Okay, amazing. Make sure everyone signs up to Spotlight tonight, whether or not you're an actor. But a massive round of applause for our amazing panel as we clap them off. As this is their time. This is the part.
You go.
You've been amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where the secret exit is or whether there's an exit somewhere, but you can jump in the audience because we're going to show a film. So everyone has to clap because they need to leave, and this always happens. They never say.
Oh, okay.
Everyone clap, come on.
Oh, wow. So cool.
But yes, this mic is not working. So I'm just going to, oh wow, it's working now. Thank you again. Amazing panel. I really enjoyed that. I hope you all enjoyed that as well. Yeah. Oh, at least one person enjoyed it. Perfect. And I hope it was useful. But now we're going to watch a film. So get comfy. And after the film, we'll have a short break. And there will be a masterclass after with the amazing Heather, who's right there. She's going to do a little wave. She's coming back. She's not running away. But yeah, stick around. We're going to show a film now. And I'm not sure if Noel's got anything to add. Has he? I'm putting him on the spot. He's just...
After the film, a break, and then come back about 2 o'clock for...
Cool. So the film is called The Fighter. And enjoy.